We're going to look at the chart for Vladimir Putin, born October 7, 1952 at 9:30 a.m. in St. Petersburg, Russia. The time may be disputed. We're going to use transformational Vedic astrology, and we're going to look at how the planets are operating and then when the planets are operating. So when Mr. Putin was born, if you look to the eastern horizon, you would see that the constellation connected with Libra was rising at 9 degrees. And this becomes the most effective point of every house. Any planet that is within 5 degrees of that most effective point has some impact. Then we're going to look at the functional nature of the planets. So we look at the Multrikona signs 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 11. And if any of them fall in the 6th, the 8th, or the 12th house, which are challenging houses, then they become challenging planets. So you see the 6th sign of Virgo in the 12th house, ruled by Mercury. Mercury becomes challenging. It can indicate losses, separations, trouble with sleep, secrecy, things like that. And it will bring that into any house that it's transiting. So the rest of the planets are can be very supporting for Mr. Putin, except for Rahu and Ketu, which are also challenging planets for every chart. Now, doesn't mean they're challenging all the time. These are eclipse planets, so they can give good results, but at some point in everyone's life, there's some darkness that comes because it's an eclipse planet, and so it can bring some unexpected events of a non-life supporting nature. So let's see. Sun is well placed. It's in this house, this 12th house. But because it's in the 12th house, it can also bring some challenges. It rules this house of income. So it brings income through the significator for Sun is leadership, brings income through leadership and quite amount of wealth. He's a very, very, very wealthy man. Moon is exalted. It's close to the most effective point, which gives it a lot of power as well. It rules the 10th house of career, and it's placed in the 8th house. So the 8th house is vulnerability and secrecy and things like that. So it gave him as a career as a spy, doing secret things, so then and also working with the public. Mars is also well placed. It is in this house of entrepreneurial success and self-expression, communication, and it is ruling the house of partnerships. So it's through his partnerships that he became successful, and it gives him courage and military abilities. He was in the KGB, and he was also a judo expert as well. Mercury is the challenging planet in a Libra chart. It's at 29 degrees. It's weak. Now, any planet that's less than 5 degrees, also Mars is slightly weak because it's less than 5 degrees. So it's ruling the 12th house, this house of secrecy and separation. It's and it's in its own house, which gives it some some redeeming qualities. But it gives him job requiring secrecy, and he also has fear of enemies. This is also associated with the 12th house. Um, Jupiter is just slightly in old age, but it's well placed, and it is ruling this house of entrepreneurial success, and it's placed in the house of partnerships. So his again success came through political partnerships, like with Yeltsin, who actually promoted him to prime minister, I think, at some point. Um, Venus is at 18 degrees. It's a fairly strong planet. It rules the first house of longevity, self, how we appear in the world, and it's in its own sign, so it gives it a lot of strength. So he should have good longevity, um, and it has to do with performing arts, fine arts, healing arts. So he's very proficient in martial arts, the judo. Gives also strong wife. Saturn is at 24 degrees, and it rules this fifth house of education, investments, and children. He had a couple of children, and this is also a house of success. Now, it is placed in this house of secrecy, and it is conjunct with Sun. So his leadership abilities and had to, were in this field of KGB of secrecy. It is afflicted by Rahu, so it gives a little bit of the dark side of Saturn. Now, Saturn gives him strong ambition, but because Rahu gives strong ambition for leadership, etc. But it can have that aspect of being controlling, a dictator. He actually, Saturn is in this house. This is pets. He loves dogs, and actually, he intimidated Andrea Merkel when they met with his dog. He knew that she was afraid of dogs. It gives him a lot of discipline, a very disciplined person. So Rahu Ketu, strong desire for career and family. So these are the main points of how the planets are operating. Now let's look at when the planets were operating. In 1975, he got his job as a KGB. That was during a Rahu period, strong desire for secrecy, etc., for a job. His parents both died in 1999, and during Sun and Moon period. Sun is father, Moon is mother. He got fired during a Mercury period. Mercury, again, is this house of losses and expenses. And then he gained the presidency in 2000 during a Moon period. Moon, one of his strongest planets. And then his second strongest planet during the 2012 election. He was in a Venus period, which is second strongest planet. So very interesting chart, very, very powerful person.